Howdy shipmates, it's Patrick. Welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's taken us so long. Have a few technical difficulties, but I've also gotten some technical upgrades. And I would like to thank my good friend, Lars DeSenza, from the Red Shirt Geeks, for setting me up with a new mic and a new camera. Hopefully, things start looking better. I've got to work on my lighting next. I think that's going to be the next thing. But getting ready for this, going in, I am finally picking up where I left off. Last video was a review of the Section 31 film. Not gonna go too far into that, but today we are going to work on how to incorporate that into your games, because every now and then you just got to play Mission Impossible in space. It's just how it works. You just got to do it. So the first step is obviously going to be character creation. Now you can do basically any character that you want. They can get recruited into Starfleet Intelligence, Section 31. Now, I've got some theories on Section 31, and I'll explore them some other time. But we're going to also deal with some of the specific characters from the movie. I'm not going to do specific builds, but I am going to kind of show how we can get to those builds within Star Trek Adventures. So let's get going with that. We are going to start with Alak Sahar. Now, Alak Sahar, as it turns out, is an augment. Not just an augment, he was actually part of the eugenics wars, and then cryogenically frozen and put into exile. So you can do augments within the framework of Star Trek Adventures. If you're playing first edition, you will need, not this, you'll need this book right here, the Sciences Division source book, because on, as I double check my page, yeah, page 41, you're going to find some rules for augments. If you're in second edition, you are going to find some of those same rules tweaked for second edition on page 114 of the core rule book. But we don't know specifically what some of his augmentations were, but that is neither here nor there. Actually, not working on specific builds. We really don't have enough information from the film to do specific builds, in my opinion. Okay, so the next guy that we are going to be taking a look at is this guy. This is Quasi. We introduced him last video. He is a Chameloid. Now, there are no write-ups for the Chameloids in Star Trek Adventures at this time. There are two ways to go about it. One, you can go into the Gamma Quadrant book and find the Changeling and reskin that. I mean, that's a good first edition solution. I believe the talent is Morphogenic Matrix, would become a species ability, if you used that that method in second edition. Another way you can go about it is to go to continuing mission and find this write-up right here. Now I will include a link in the description and in a pinned comment to get to this easily. This is, again, a first edition a first edition write-up, but if you're going to use it for second edition, this talent shifter would become your species ability and free up a talent slot for you. All right, moving on. We go next to well, if I hit the right button, we go next to. There we go. We go next to Mel. She is a Delton. No current write-up in second edition, but she does. Well, not she. They, the Deltons, do appear in the Beta Quadrant source book. They are on. Checks my notes. Yeah, they are on Beta Quadrant, page 79. And for if you're moving them over to second edition, you would just take the talent Delton Pheromones, and that would become your species ability. And here's the Beta Quadrant source book, in case you forgot what the cover looked like. All right, moving on. We're going to move to. We're going to move on to this guy. I hit the wrong button again. You'd think I'd know what I was doing by this point in time, but you'd be wrong. Anyway, this is Zeth. Now, from all appearances, he is an ordinary human in a kind of a clunky mechanical suit. I saw a meme online once. It's like, this is what happens when you order your Borg from Wish, which may or may not be true, but it does give us a basis for how to model him in STA. Essentially, he's a liberated Borg. In first edition, you can find the basic species template for the liberated Borg in the Delta Quadrant book on page 64. The Borg implants talent, which you have to take, it would just get changed to mech suit, but from a functional standpoint, it's the exact same thing. Again, like we were doing with the augments, if you're doing this in second edition, mech suit becomes your species ability, and you can find additional information about Borg implants and other cybernetics on page 114 of the second edition core rule book. And there is the Delta Quadrant book, in case you've forgotten what it looked like, or you you never knew in the first place, or you're all going, well, Patrick, I know what this book looks like. I've had this for years. However it works, Delta Quadrant page 64 is where you'll find the basic template for Liberated Borg. All right, moving on to the final character option that we're going to deal with here. This is Fuzz. And Fuzz is a Nanokin riding in a robot. In case you have forgotten or you didn't know in the first place. Nanokins, they're a tough one. So what I am doing is I am modeling the Nanokins after Soong-type androids, which you're going to find in the next generation player character pack. They have not been officially ported over to a second edition as yet, but have faith. I believe it will happen. Yeah, we're kind of having to come up with them completely from scratch. Anyway, for Nanokins, I gave them, for purposes of my game, if I ever do this, if I ever get to play again, I set them with a +1 to control, reason, and presence. Didn't make any sense at all to give them physical stats since they are microbes, essentially dealing with great big bags of mostly water. That would be us. They didn't call us that. That's just a callback on my part. Anyway, to interface with our scale of universe, they wind up interfacing with electronics, robotics, things of that nature. So in first edition, one of the talents they have to have is neural interface, which is in the sciences division. Yeah, this guy right here, the sciences division source book. That's on page 41. They also have to have as a talent Conveyance, which is the robot body that they drive around in. I will include a write-up of this in the comments for ease of reference. I haven't been doing real good with getting stuff that I'm supposed to be writing up actually out onto the web and getting them to Michael or Tony at Continuing Mission. Working on that part too. But if you're doing this in second edition, the neural interface, which in second edition is on page 155, that's your species ability. You still have to take the Conveyance talent as one of your talent slots. I'm hoping at some point that we can come up with a more elegant way of doing this, but not in my designer's brain today, I'm afraid. But I will get all of that into the comments and such, so you can at least copy them down. And again, they'll also be getting put on the screen as we do this. Okay, so moving on from the specific species, Giorgio and Rachel Garrett I didn't really cover because they're humans. They're in the book. You'll figure it out. The concept of Emperor Giorgio having faith of the heart as a species ability may rankle some of you, though, so figure something else out. Put something else in as the species ability if you don't like it. I kind of favor the Andorian species ability as a substitute, but that's going to be up to you at your table for Terrans. Moving on. The homeworld and the upbringing, or the cast or what have you, doesn't matter a whole lot. As I said earlier, any species can become a spy, can become a Mission Impossible agent. Wherever you grew up will have contributed. That said, if you're doing this in either first or second edition, don't overlook some of the other books. You may be doing it in second edition, but the background information found in the Klingon core rulebook for first edition, all of those are equally valid. I mean, obviously, mostly here if you're playing Klingons, but you can use them just as easily with second edition as you can with first edition. And there is also a lot of player character options in this book. The Player's Guide. Don't skip out on these. They're worth their weight in latinum just because of all the various character stuff that you're going to find in there. Let me double check. I did not put any specific page references in my notes. Sorry. But all of the homeworld and aspirational stuff will work in any edition, in any of your games. It's just different ways of getting to the same basic results. Which brings us to the training or the career path. And everything here is also pretty wide open. Now, just because most of what you see on the shows about Section 31 has them being drawn from the security division does not mean that that's universal. Like with the homeworld and upbringing steps, any of those can be taken from any of the sources for life path material. The Klingon core book, the Player's Guide. This is going to work just as well for your training and stuff as it is for anything else, and it works just fine with the character generation from second edition. About the only thing that I would kind of steer away from is one of the things you can become build as a character in the Player's Guide is a kid, a child, And I don't know that I would necessarily uh, want to deal with that in this sort of campaign. Now, you can also build a cadet. Uh, while the write up there is kind of specifically aiming at Starfleet Academy, it's not universal. You can use any kind of learning situation. College students, any Vulcan Science Academy, that sort of thing. You can create a younger character, and it's not out of the question for you know cadets to get pulled into shady situations. Just look at the poor saps from Red Squad in the DS9 episode Valiant, or poor Sylvia Tilly in Discovery, especially the first season, where she was pulled out of the academy by Captain Lorca and doing all sorts of shady stuff. So, like I said, just because they're a cadet doesn't mean that Section 31 might not come a calling. Now, career lengths. These all have pros and cons, and different people in different situations are going to look at everything, pro or con, in kind of a different light. Some people, whether cons to some are pros to other, and vice versa. So, if you're a novice, you're just out of the academy, or you've just completed basic training, you've graduated whatever you're graduating. A lot of these are younger kids. They are idealistic. Uh, they are headstrong, looking to make a difference in the galaxy, and Intel uh, Intel recruiters, they're going to look at that. They are fairly easy to manipulate because it's real easy to get in on a kid's good side, working with their beliefs. They're a little harder to control because they tend to be inexperienced and headstrong. So there's that to deal with. Experienced officers, little harder to recruit sometimes, but once you find a way in, work with their values and things like that, once you've worked your way in, they're generally pretty solid and reliable because they've had a few years to build up some self-discipline, some conviction, and once you get that working on your side, you're golden. Your veterans, they're a lot harder to convince because they've been doing this for a long time, and sometimes it can be difficult to recruit them. If you catch a disillusioned veteran, they're kind of easy to recruit, but you can't always count on that. What you can count on is once you've got them working for you and you figure out what their motivation is, they can be dogged. They will latch onto things like a pit bull latches onto a soup bone. So don't rule out trying to recruit them. But you're going to find all stages of life, all walks of life in intelligence in Section 31. So you just have to figure out how you want to work it into your story. Now, career events. Not necessarily the most important aspect of care gen in terms of getting your characters involved in Section 31. However, if you've got a player who wants to have been part of this life from the very beginning, something they really wanted to do, tying back into the idea of cadets, there is in the operations guide, the operations division source book, on page, what page number is that? That is on page 21. There is a specific career event that can be used in the life path for either first or second edition called Recruited into Starfleet Intelligence. Substitute Starfleet Intelligence for whatever intelligence operation, recruited into Tal Shiar, recruited into the Obsidian Order, recruited into the Unseen from the Klingon core rulebook. But that does exist. It is not on any of the random tables, but it is perfectly usable and valid in second edition as well as in first. Where all the real fun stuff starts happening, the primary focus almost always seems to be in security for a lot of players pushing on this. And you'll find a lot of intelligence and more combat-oriented focuses and such and talents, But focuses and talents are really where it kind of comes out. You'll find a lot of those for first edition in the aforementioned Operations Division source book, but you'll also find a huge list in the second edition core rulebook with its much greater listing of talents and focuses. You'll also find a lot of talents, especially if you're playing first edition. You'll find a lot of talents that wound up in the second edition core book. You'll find those in the first edition form in the player's guide. And that's that's the big thing for characters. Ships, just about any ship will wind up at some point or another being used for being co-opted for intel work. For a dedicated show like this, you want to look at smaller ships, usually faster ships. I wouldn't go above scale 3. But you can find all sorts of ships that you can you can consider for things like this in Utopia Planitia, which I didn't have queued up for some reason, and I don't want to waste time doing it. So you all know what Utopia Planitia looks like by now. That's one of the best source books we've got for the game. But lean towards ships that could conceivably be in civilian service, older ships, quote quote older ships, depending on what area you're playing in. A Walker class. That's a small ship that you could find just about anywhere in a 22nd century or 23rd, late 22nd, early 23rd, mid 23rd. I mean, they're still active in Discovery. If you're looking for more specifically Section 31 ships, you'll want to dig up the Discovery 2256 to 2258 source book, because there's a lot of information about Section 31 in that book. But like I said, you want to tend to smaller, less noticeable ships. Taking an Odyssey class in as a Section 31 ship, that's a choice. You can do it, but I don't recommend it. And that kind of takes care of everything on the player's side. On the GM side, there are a lot of things to consider. And it comes down to working with your players on this. A lot of secret agent types in movies and TV. A lot of them are, damaged, if not completely broken. They've got dark backstories, and they are, they've lived things out. Don't skip out on this. This is your players telling you, hey, this is one of the things I want to deal with. If you've got a character like, say, Alak Sahar, who is a eugenics war era augment with an incredibly dark past, give him a chance to roleplay some of that out. Find situations as the game master to give that player a chance to work with that. He put it in there for a reason. Don't skip that. If one of your players has a character that's got a really cool ability, say they're a shapeshifter, give them a chance to play with that as well. Because, that's where Section 31 as a movie, that's some of the places where it failed for me, because they had taken away some of the opportunities for characters like Alak Sahar and Quasi to really do anything, because a lot of that would have been in a specific episode down the line, instead of trying to cram everything into this hour-and-a-half movie. On the same subject, don't be so anxious to essentially fridge some of the characters. I know that if I had been Mel's player, I'd have been really, really honked off for having my character killed in the first 20 minutes. And don't be that GM, is what I'm saying. Maybe Mel's player had to pull out of the campaign suddenly, and they didn't want to find somebody else to play her, so they killed her for that reason. We'll never know. But don't be the kind of GM that wants to. Don't be the kind of GM that wants to kill all your player characters anyway, because that's no damn fun. But give them a chance. Let them grow if they can. And on the kind of on that subject, transitioning to the next thing. Well, before we do that, no, we're gonna move on. Moving on, because I start pontificating. I start really digressing. So, moving on, the last thing I really want to touch on is with Section 31. There are a couple. The movie. There were a couple of things that they were trying to do. They did not pull off one of them nearly as well as I would have liked, and that was dealing with Giorgio's past. I think that would have been better served in a much longer format than a 90 some odd minute movie. But the one that they handled a lot better was the Mission Impossible in Space angle. And what I would advise you at this point to do is once things get rolling, and this is for GMs and players alike, threat and momentum should both be flowing like sangria at happy hour. I mean, it should just be back and forth, back and forth. You give, you're giving the GM threat, the GM's spending it, the GM's giving you momentum, you're spending it. But that should move just ridiculously fast. It should, it should never sit still, because this is the kind of genre where you're playing, where your characters should be doing things that would make Tom Cruise and Matt Damon blush. I mean, just crazy, ballsy stunts. Ridiculous ideas with ships. Jumping off of buildings and finding a way, to not be street pizza. But threat and momentum, these should never be static in this kind of game. Ideally, they shouldn't really be static in any game, but for this particular genre approach, just, toss it in, pull it out, toss it in, pull it out, toss it in, pull it out. That is the best way to go, in my opinion. But let me know what you think. If you think I'm full of it, let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this, hit like, share it with your friends. Leave me comments. Let me know what I've missed, because there's bound to be something. I may be good, but I'm not that good. I have not thought of everything. But with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by. Live long and prosper. Try not to get yourself disavowed. Thank you for coming by, and I will catch you in the next one. Good night.